Welcome to the Seriously Social podcast with your host, Simone Douglas. Our guest today is GP Dr. Nick Tellis. He chats with Simone about healthy alcohol consumption, holistic health, and the challenges of working in the health sector during a pandemic.
Today, I'm joined by Dr. Nick from Partridge GP. Nick, thanks for joining us today.
No worries.
Perhaps we can start with the Cliff Notes version of who you are, what you're all about, and how you ended up here.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nick. I'm sure that's not trademarked. I am a doctor. I studied in Adelaide. I went over to Western Australia, did a little bit of work there, came back, did a bit of everything. That bit of everything brought me to starting my own practice 7 years ago now. And as part of becoming a business owner as well as a doctor, that brought me to BNI. And that has brought me in connection with Simone. And here we are.
We've got to love networking, really, for
Indeed.
sure. So in your areas of practice, what's been the most interesting thing that you've got to do as a general practitioner?
Wow. Well, before I was a GP, I did trackside doctor for the Clipsal 500. I did some prison medicine, some work with the Remand Centre, a little bit of ICU work, a couple of years of emergency work, visiting medical officer for Boxing SA.
Wow.
Little bits and pieces. All of those things have sort of got me to where I am today.
And shaped your approach to medicine over time, I would have thought.
Indeed.
Yeah, cool. What do you think is the biggest challenge to GPs as a whole when it comes to telling their stories?
Well, I would probably say that GPs are a very disparate group, a bit like herding cats. I think every GP is slightly different. It's one of the things I think that gets people into the gig is they like autonomy, and general practitioner, the name gives it away. There's a lot of general in there. So one practitioner's general practice can be very, very different to another practitioner's general practice. But I think the commonalities are you're a doctor, you're there to help, communication is paramount, and continuity of care, longitudinal care, looking after someone through their lifetime. Not like a hospital where you go to a hospital, there's lots of fancy machines, lots of intervention, you mainly you shut up and get what you're given. But people go to a hospital, they go back to the community. That's where they come from. That's hopefully where they're going, and that's where the GPs are. So,
No, that makes sense. I think it raises that interesting point too, because GPs will often deal with all the generations of a family as well. And so, from that in-depth understanding of medical history across generations is pretty fascinating stuff, I would have thought.
It would be lovely if the CRM software sort of married up with the EMR, the electronic medical record. I used to work in the country, and we had an electronic medical record system. And when you went over the road to the local pub, over the door of the pub was the 100 Club of the pub. So all the people who'd smashed down 100 schooners or pints over the course of their time at the pub. And I always thought it'd be a fantastic thing if I could get that 100 board and import it into my medical software. Because I suspected being on that board was a risk factor for pretty much everything you'd care to name.
Yes, 100
I shouldn't
pints.
say that to a pub owner, should
No.
I?
Well, look, I think it's everything in moderation, because funnily enough, when we took over the Duke of Brunswick 3 years ago, one of the things that I was very passionate about, it's not a popular standpoint for a publican in the city, is we ripped out all the gambling. So I'm very anti gambling. I'm reasonably well known for that. I don't like what it does to people, and I also think that it detracts from, in a hotel setting, it detracts from actually being social. So if you're sat there staring at a screen, you've got a Keno ticket in your hand or a TAB ticket, or you're putting money into a poker machine, you're not relating to the people around you. You're actually putting barriers in the way. And likewise, you need to have some moderation with, your alcohol intake. One of the things that I love most about the Duke of Brunswick is that we got to break all the rules about what a pub's meant to be. So, you know, if I had told someone, in fact, when I worked for a very large hotel chain that shall remain nameless because they have very deep pockets. But, you know, I wanted to send the hotel that I was working for, I wanted the menu to be 100% gluten-free back then. And that would have been before my 13-year-old was born, so 13 years ago. And was told that I was mad, that couldn't do it, that it was ridiculous, you know, all these things. And because it was a big company, there was a state manager above me that went, no. So I went, okay, fair enough. And then when I found this pub by accident, I was like, okay, well, you know, eventually we're like, well, let's just go 100% gluten-free, because mostly so that I could eat whatever was in the kitchen. And the beauty of that was it turned out that, you know, there was this complete untapped market of the families of celiacs who just wanted to go out and enjoy a family dinner where they could pick off each other's plates, especially kids, without the fear and the stress. And having successfully glutened myself once or twice when I thought I would be okay, it's not a very pleasant experience.
No, it wouldn't be.
No. So, but it's also that thing of by creating that kind of family community environment, we don't get that excess. We don't get the people coming here to write themselves off or drink till midnight, and you know it's very rare we trade that late anyway. I'm probably, again, unpopular in that I wouldn't mind if we were, you know, going back to 6 o'clock closing on a Sunday, although the 6 o'clock skull was never a particularly good thing, sending really drunk people home to their significant others. On that note though, what do you think is, you know, the biggest challenge from a health perspective, when you've got environments like this where you've got something that is a drug, ostensibly, that does have negative, you know, effects on your health when you do it to excess? What's the biggest challenge for society in general when it comes to this stuff?
I think we see that there are a lot of approaches to this. You can have a top-down controlling way of dealing with things, and you can have a no rules, everything goes. And we can see, because we've got the benefit of many competing systems in the world, or you can have a look at the social credit score in China, and you can see that they've got one way of dealing with public licentiousness. And then you can go to Somalia, the ultimate libertarian paradise, and see how they deal with it. I've never been to China or Somalia. I doubt that's going to change in the near future.
No.
I think my personal thought is I like, as a doctor and as a business owner, I like to deal with the people who want to deal with me. So there's got to be a bit of alignment there. So the people that see me as a patient generally are quite aligned to my way of thinking. One of the ways I've used social media is to start that conversation outside of my premises.
Cool.
It was very important to me that my front of house staff are treated very, very well. They're the face of the business. They're valued employees, they're friends, they're colleagues, and their job is not to wear things in the waiting room.
Bad day.
People often will not go in and sound off at the doctor, but they'll sound off at the staff. And so one of the things, you can Google my name and you will come up with the website, the blog, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, and so on. It does not take very much to see that I'm not a big fan of prescribing narcotics. I'm not a big fan of prescribing benzodiazepines, Valium, and sleeping medications. I have some ideas on diet and alcohol and some other things. And the people that don't agree with those things see that and they don't come in.
It makes sense.
And they can go and see someone else. There are plenty of people who will deal with people who think differently to me. It's not like they're not served. But the people who read what I say and what I think, and they think, you know what, I can work with that. That's something that resonates with me. Brilliant. Come on in. Let's have a conversation. So that's how I would deal with it. I don't have a one-size-fits-all strategy for everyone, a grand unifying theory of everything. I think for every person like yourself who runs, from what I can see, a fantastic establishment, I've been here a couple of times, it certainly does stick out from the run-of-the-mill pubs, even sitting down here for 20 minutes today, you can hear people having conversations. The music isn't too loud.
Yeah.
The staff here have always been super engaging.
They're amazing.
It's an awesome little oasis of a place to be. But we can walk,
Down
10 minutes in any direction and find something very different.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
those value offerings will be consumed by different people.
Other people, yeah. And I think that raises a really good point. A medical practice, no different to any other business, you have your own niches as well, just because it has general practice as a term, we all as business owners end up doing work with the clients or patients that we are meant to be working with. Like if we're clever, we get, clarity around messaging. We tell our stories very well on our digital channels so that we appeal to the right people. What do you wish someone had told you in your first year of business? So let's just forget that it's medical practice. You guys are bound by a lot more rules than the average bear.
We are.
But, what one piece of advice do you wish someone had given you in your first year that would have saved you a lot of angst and headache?
When I graduated from university, I really wanted to work. I think some people they want to study, they want to be the eternal student. I did my medical degree so that I could work. That was my gig. And so I moved from being a junior medical officer through to a fully qualified doctor, and then almost immediately essentially went as a sole trader. So I've been a sole trader for 17 and a half years now.
Wow.
So even from day dot, I was a business of one, and I sort of scaled that to the current day where I don't have to do all the work myself, and I can work on the business rather than in the business. Yeah. But one thing that I've thought so many times, I wish someone had just gone back and said, you probably should pay a bit of attention, is learn to type.
Yeah, okay.
Learning to touch type would have been such a weapons grade part of a talent stack.
Yeah.
It would have paid for itself, and it's quite hard to sort of develop that motor skill in retrospect. I've got a modified hunt and peck technique now.
Yeah, that's kind of mine.
I can type. I can get about 50, 60 words a minute. I see the guys coming through and our female doctors as well. 50% of our doctors are female, and they can touch type, so they can talk to the
client at the same time.
The client. Prostitutes have client. We've got patients, but they can talk to you and touch type at the same time. Whereas I can't do that. So that would have been a great addition.
It would speed up your consults, wouldn't it? Being able to take medical notes and speak to the patient.
All the technology we have. We still have not found a great solution in the general practice space of getting the info into the computer. It's a bugbear of mine as I move forwards, that you're almost having a little bit of conversation with the computer when you really want to be having conversation with the person who's paying for you to have a chat with them.
Yeah.
And we don't do that in any other sphere of endeavour. We don't have one-to-ones in BNI. We don't have personal meetings. We don't do all these other things with the technology sort of intruding that much.
Yeah.
We're not typing this up. We've got this recorded. We can live transcribe it on rev.com.
Yeah,
they're not sponsoring me, by the way, or something like that. But the medical consultation, that's the next frontier as far as I'm concerned.
It really is, isn't it? There's definitely a business opportunity there. And I suppose some unique challenges in terms of interfacing with what is highly confidential information that needs to go into the places that it needs to go. I think the legal sphere is probably another industry that has those same challenges, because often, and we do, funnily enough, we do a lot of work in legal and a lot of work in medical, and they both have really unique guidelines. So, you guys are bound by your APRA guidelines. You go jump on an aeroplane, not these days, but let's go to the States. If you're in America and you're a doctor, you can say whatever the hell you want on social media pretty much.
So some people think that, without, sort of derailing the whole topic, they're shouting fire in a crowded theatre quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I've always thought, especially when dealing with APRA, is you get a lot of free kicks in medicine.
Yeah.
Someone could come into your room and you can have a deep, meaningful conversation with them inside of 60 seconds with stuff that they've never told anyone before.
Yeah,
there are things that happen in a consultation that you would be arrested for if you did it out on the street. So to borrow from the comics, with great power comes great responsibility.
Nice.
And you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And if you're running around, sort of sounding off on every given topic without an awareness of how that's going to come across, you will come to the attention of APRA. And, people have done that. I think one guy got on various sort of Usenet or some sort of forum and was sounding off about this, that and the other, and then found that his medical licensing sort of disappeared.
Yes, and I seem to remember that story.
To me, regardless of what this bloke said, it all sounded ridiculous to me, but whatever he said, the prime bit of stupidity for me was the absolute lack of insight that made him think that he could sound off on these controversial topics without fear of reprisal.
Yeah.
That was the bit of professional silliness.
Yeah.
There.
Well, I suppose that's also indicative of a very ego-driven human being who, thankfully, they're not, to go back to what you were saying before, they're not the kinds of people that tend to stay in my world very long.
Yes.
We like the people that, can let other people have oxygen too. It's always a good thing. So I guess, what is the biggest challenge then for you, or the biggest opportunity, do you think, in your industry when it comes to digital channels and storytelling?
I think I saw a little social media graphic, and it was saying what's been the big thing for electronic advancement in your industry, and people are like, well, it was my CIO, it was our business plan, it was that, and then there was a big wrecking ball with COVID-19 on it. It was like, that did it. The amount of paper and, let's be frank, just absolute busy work and BS that infests my profession is huge. And I've been hearing this yakking for many moons, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and then all of a sudden, bang, February. Telehealth is here. You
like
can
magic,
consult over the phone. You can consult over video. You will be familiar with these little bits of paper with your prescriptions on it. That's going electronic if it hasn't already. There were various sort of legal issues with transmitting scripts and other things. I've lost count of the amount of people that complain to me in the medical sphere about email being not a secure method of communication. I know it. I know it's like a postcard. I know it's like putting your stuff in. No one cares.
No one cares. People
value speed over security in this instance.
Yeah.
And so we've done that. And we see now that we've got, sort of token prescriptions, you should be able to, very, very soon, we can just push a prescription to your phone, to an app, to your pharmacist. All of that stuff is moving forwards. There's some challenges with that, but it's a lot better than it was 9 months ago.
Absolutely. And, I think, God, it sounds ridiculous to me now, but, being a single parent, 2 young kids, running 3 businesses, and trying to get to the GP to get a script for a contraceptive pill because I'd not paid attention to all the things that I needed to do, and it effectively run out, and I really needed to fill it within 2 days. And I ended up, I had to call a locum out at 9 o'clock at night, go, I'm really sorry. I know there are actually sick people that you should be seeing, but I don't have any other way to sort this out. So if you can come and issue me a script and take my blood pressure, that would be great.
It's a big issue. I'm not a super big fan of the locum service for various reasons. However, they fill a need, and it might not be so much a medical need, but an organisational need.
Yeah.
And the scenario you've outlined is just one of those. I think one of the things that will change is, why did we ever think it was a good idea to troop you across town to wait in an enclosed area with other people with cough, sniffles and other infective diseases, and park you there for 30 minutes plus to have an interaction which large parts of it could have been done without that physical contact. Face-to-face is fantastic. It provides you with a lot of bandwidth that you don't get over Zoom. I find Zoom tends to rectify things. It cuts out even the ups and the downs of vocal modulation.
Yeah.
But, it's we will improve. At the end of this, we will have a better service offering and a better product than we did at the start.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a really good spot to end. Nick, thanks very much for joining me. And hopefully I get to talk to you again sometime on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Seriously Social. Check our website for the latest news, show notes, and for details about Simone's latest book, Confident Networker.